In this video, let us look at this topic, glomus tumor of the ear. Okay, we are glomus tumor. Actually, if you Google, you will get these kind of images, right? Something to do with the finger or the toe or some other parts of the body. So basically, glomus tumor is arising from glomus bodies. What are these glomus bodies? These are in the dermis layer of the skin. So you know what the layers of the skin are, right? Epidermis, dermis. So dermis layer of the skin. So skin will have epidermis and dermis. And below that you will have subcutaneous fat. So in the dermis layer of the skin, what will be there? Glomus bodies. So this tumor is arising from where? From the glomus bodies of which are there in the dermis of the skin. What do these glomus bodies do? They help in temperature regulation. Temperature regulation. They help in what? In temperature regulation. So let's highlight some words here. So what do they help in? Temperature regulation. Where are they? These glomus body in dermis layer of skin. What are these glomus bodies? Okay. So these glomus bodies, where and all do you find in the ear? Okay. So now we have come to ear. We are studying ENT. So we want to talk about glomus tumor of the ear. So in the ear, you have these glomus bodies in the dome of the jugular bulb, where and all? In the dome of the jugular bulb and, or on the promontory along the course of the tympanic branch of the 9th cranial nerve. That is the glossopharyngeal nerve. Tympanic branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve. It is called as the Jacobson's nerve. So, in the ear, where and all you will find these glomus bodies, guys? Okay, you remember two things, jugular bulb, another one is promontory, something to do with the 9th cranial nerve's branch, the tympanic branch of the 9th cranial nerve, that's the glossopharyngeal nerve. It is called as Jacobson's nerve. Okay. Is this clear? So, two locations you have to remember. Look at this, you can see the promontory here, right? Promontory, these are the tympanic plexus, isn't it? And here they have shown the tympanic nerve from glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay, let's zoom a little more. So can you see this? Promontory, tympanic plexus, glossopharyngeal nerve, the tympanic nerve from the glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay. So till here, have you understood? So what and all we saw till now, we have started off with glomus tumor. We saw that it arises from glomus bodies. Where are these glomus bodies? We saw in the ear, where they are we have seen. So usually glomus tumor, if you Google, you will get this kind of images. Okay, toes, fingers, etc. But we want to talk about glomus tumor of ear. Okay, look at this image here of a real clinical image of a glomus tumor. This is a glomus tympanicum. There are two things, okay, that can happen. We'll come to that. So based on the location, right, you have glomus jugulare or glomus jugular, you can say, glomus tympanicum. If it's from the promontory, glomus tympanicum. If it's from the dome of the jugular bulb, then glomus jugulare. Two things, right? You have seen two locations of glomus bodies in the ear. So two types of glomus tumor of the ear. So what is glomus tumor? So how will you define it? So in tumors of middle ear, you have primary tumors. In that benign tumor, you have glomus tumor. So glomus tumor is a benign condition of the middle ear, right? Where from the glomus bodies, you will see this tumor arising, right? There are two types here, glomus jugulare and glomus tympanicum. This tumor consists of paraganglionic cells which are derived from the neural crest. What is it? It is consisting of paraganglionic cells. It consists of paraganglionic cells. What are paraganglions? They are a group of non-neuronal cells derived from neural crest. Okay, anyways, just remember here glomus bodies are helping in what? Temperature regulation. Okay, so this tumor consists of what? Paraganglionic cells derived from neural crest. So people just note that this females are affected more, okay, and the age that it affects is 40 to 50 years. It is benign. Yes, we already told you it's a benign condition. It is non-encapsulated. So though it is benign, it is not encapsulated. It is vascular. Okay, this also you remember. Okay, benign, non-encapsulated, extremely vascular. Okay. So it grows very slowly, several years. Okay. So this tumor is actually locally invasive. Microscopically, they are saying that it shows masses and sheets of epithelial cells, large nuclei, granular cytoplasm, abundance of thin-walled blood sinusoids with no contractile muscle coat. Profuse bleeding will be there from these tumors because of all this vascularity. Okay. In this photo, do you actually see any vascularity? Let's try to see some vascularity. Not sure. So anyways, so that was the explanation of the microscopy. What you remember is extremely vascular. This much you remember, okay? We already looked at the two types. Glomus jugulare, from the dome of jugular bulb, invade the hypotympanum and jugular foramen, causing neurological signs of 9th and 12th cranial nerve involvement. They may compress jugular vein or invade its lumen. So this is affecting what and all? The 9th and 12th cranial nerve. What is this glomus tympanicum? It arises from the promontory of the middle ear and it causes oral symptoms. Mainly it is middle ear, right? So oral symptoms, hearing symptoms, sometimes even facial paralysis. So it is affecting mainly the 7th cranial nerve. Can we say that? See this one, it can fill the middle ear, okay? It can fill the middle ear and it can perforate through the tympanic membrane and can present as a vascular polyp, okay? Apart from that, what and all it can do? It can invade the labyrinth, the petrous pyramid, the mastoid, okay, the mastoid. It may invade the jugular foramen and then the base of the skull, causing 9th to 12th cranial nerve palsies, 9th to 12th. So they're saying everything, all cranial nerves it can affect. It can spread through eustachian tube and then it can be seen in nasopharynx. It may spread intracranially to posterior and middle cranial fossa, Metastatic spread to lungs and bones are rare, okay, but it is seen in 4% cases. Lymph node enlargement also can occur. Yes, clinical features very important, very specific terminologies are there. Hearing loss, tinnitus. So some specific words here: rising sun appearance, pulsation sign. Okay, these two are very important. Let's read these. So earliest symptom will be what? Hearing loss, tinnitus. This hearing loss is what type of hearing loss, guys? Still conductive hearing loss. It is slowly progressive. Tinnitus, again it is pulsatile, swishing character. Okay. Synchronous with pulse, can be temporarily stopped by carotid pressure. Okay, this tinnitus can be stopped by carotid pressure. Now, coming to what you will see, otoscopy, you will see that there is rising sun appearance. Let us look at what this is. So, via the otoscope, when you see, there is red reflex through intact tympanic membrane. They are very specific. The tympanic membrane yet not perforated, it is intact. Rising sun appearance is seen when the tumor arises from the floor of the middle ear. So, when the tumor is arising from the floor of the middle ear, you can see a red mass, red reflex. Rest of the eardrum is normal. If you think it looks like a rising sun, great. Okay, then there is one more sign here called pulsation sign. Very important to know this, pulsation sign also. So here we are, pulsation sign. So what are we talking about? Pulsation sign. It's also called as Brown sign. So basically this is positive, where when you're using Siegel's speculum and you're raising the ear canal pressure, you pump, right? You pump this and you raise the pressure in the ear canal, what will you see? You will see pulsation. The tumor pulsates vigorously and then blanches. Okay, so all these words are important. The tumor pulsates vigorously and then blanches. And then when you release the pressure, reverse happens. Okay, so this is pulsation sign or Brown sign. You can try to look at that here. So anyways, look at those specific YouTube videos. So here what we saw were clinical features when tumor is intratympanic. Now we have to continue still. We'll go a little fast from here, but just don't forget this. Rising sun, glomus tumor. Okay. Okay, if it has now perforated the tympanic membrane and it becomes a polyp, then the person can have vertigo, otorrhoea. So when you look at it, you will see a vascular polyp that very easily bleeds. Okay. Then in late features, you have cranial nerves getting affected. Guys, cranial nerves, we already told you, from 9th cranial nerve to 12th cranial nerve, all of them will get affected. So what and all will happen? Dysphagia, vocal cord gets affected. There is weakness of these muscles like trapezius and sternocleidomastoid muscles. There can be atrophy of the tongue. So all these are the late features anyways. Some very rare things are there called, what are those? Okay, it not rare. This one at all stages it says that audible bruit. So when you auscultate with stethoscope over the mastoid, if you keep the stethoscope, right, auscultate with stethoscope over the mastoid, you will get a systolic bruit at all stages. Okay, this is at all stages. At all stages. Okay. Then rule of, okay, what is this? What more have they written about this? So these tumors can also secrete catecholamines sometimes, okay, and they can produce symptoms like headache, sweating, palpitation, hypertension, anxiety, etc. There's a rule of 10 that these this glomus tumor follows, guys. They are like 10% are familial, 10% are multicentric, occurring in more than one site, 10% are functional. That means they secrete catecholamines, okay. Very rare. Okay, now let's move on. Diagnosis. So diagnosis we will just mention very quickly. CT scan, CT head scan. Okay, CT scan of what? Of the head. Then you can have MRI, CT and MRI combined. CT head and MRI combined. Okay, then 4-vessel angiography. Okay. What is this 4-vessel? So they want to delineate any other glomus tumor. They want to find the feeding vessels and they want to find if there is embolization of tumor. Then they will do brain perfusion and flow studies. Embolization. What is this embolization? Embolization of feeding vessels 1 to 2 days before operation helps to reduce blood loss. Is that diagnosis? Okay. Lastly, they have written here biopsy. Will you actually do a biopsy? Because it is very bleeding, it's vascular, right? This is never done. Preoperative biopsy is never done because it bleeds. So these two we will just put them down. Embolization where you do before surgery, right? To control the blood loss. Preoperative biopsy never done. Okay. Okay, let's look at this image here. CT scan showing glomus tumor of the left ear. This is of the left ear. CT scan. As for glomus tumor, what is treatment? Surgery. Okay, surgical removal. The other options they have given is radiation, embolization, so that there is no feeding vessel, combination of all these. Okay, surgery, let us look at this. There are so many approaches. What are the approaches they are talking about? Transcanal approach, hypotympanic approach, then extended facial recess approach. What is this? Used for glomus tympanicum. Then you have a mastoid neck approach. Then there is a infratemporal fossa approach or FISH. infratemporal fossa approach or FISH. Then you have transcondylar approach. Okay. So there are so many approaches. So basically how you will reach it, from where you will reach. That's all, right? This is transcanal approach, hypotympanic approach. So basically guys, just know that the first three that they have written here, transcanal approach, hypotympanic approach and extended facial recessed approach, usually these are for glomus tympanicum. And mastoid neck approach, infratemporal fossa approach, right, and transcondylar approach, all these usually are for glomus jugulare. Okay. Okay, is this clear now? So some surgical removal only has to happen and they have so many approaches based on how big it is. Okay. Then radiation, embolization, or just lastly they have written a combination. So only three things: surgery, radiation, embolization. Okay. Usually radiation they'll do if surgery is not possible, right? So this radiation, actually they are saying that it does not cure the tumor, but it will just reduce its vascularity and arrest its growth. Let's take a quick recap of what we have seen in this video so far. We started off with glomus tumor. We wanted to look at the one that is in the ear. So basically glomus tumor arises from glomus bodies, and what do? They regulate temperature, and in the ear they are found in two places: dome of the jugular bulb and promontory on the promontory. Okay. So basically when you Google glomus tumor, it usually gives you finger, toes. But here we want to read about the middle ear, tumors of middle ear. In this we have glomus tumor being a benign tumor. Okay. So it consists of what? Paraganglionic cells. Okay. You saw that it affects females 40 to 50 years. It's very slow growing. It is benign, non-encapsulated, extremely vascular is the most important thing here. Okay. So there are two types because there are two places where glomus bodies can be found in the ear. You have glomus jugulare from the dome of the jugular bulb and glomus tympanicum from promontory. Did you look at where the jugular bulb is? So jugular vein, on that they have shown this jugular bulb. Okay. So that is where you will see the glomus jugulare. Okay. Then glomus tympanicum from promontory. So how does it spread? We saw it will spread. It can perforate the tympanic membrane, come out. It can go upwards to the brain, posterior in the cranial fossa, then eustachian tube, then labyrinth. Everywhere we saw it can spread. Then clinical features, mainly when the tumor is intratympanic, you should say hearing loss, tinnitus, red reflex and otoscopy, that is rising sun appearance, then pulsation sign via the Siegel speculum, Brown sign, that is also called as Brown sign. Coming to the clinical features, when the tumor presents as polyp, there will be vertigo, otorrhea, vascular polyp, that's how it looks, it bleeds readily. All the cranial nerves are affected, 9, 10, 11, 12. That is late sign. Audible brew you can hear at all stages when you keep the stethoscope on the mastoid and auscultate. Rule of 10. Coming to diagnosis, CT, MRI, combination of CT and MRI. 4, you can do angiography. Then brain perfusion, flow studies, etc. Before surgery, embolization, and never do biopsy. Preoperative biopsy should not do. Coming to treatment, surgical removal, so many approaches. If it is glomus tympanicum, what approach? If it is glomus jugulare, what approach? Radiation and embolization. That's all in this video on glomus tumor of the ear. Okay, that's all. Bye bye. Let's look at a few extra points also. So, glomus tumors, they include paragangliomas, chemodectomas and carotid body tumors. They arise from carotid body cells in the jugular bulb or from the middle ear. And what is the treatment? Surgical resection. Okay. Surgical resection followed by radiotherapy, or alternatively SRS in single fraction or hypofractionated SRS. What is SRS? This is actually stereotactic radiosurgery. This is actually for brain lesions. Okay. Continuing. In radical mastoidectomy, one of the indications is removal of glomus tumor. So you can remember this. In radical mastoidectomy, one of the indications is removal of glomus tumor. Blue drum, where and all you will see blue drum? You can see blue drum in glomus tumor. Okay. Then jugular foramen syndrome, you can see because all these paralysis of these nerves, you can see it in glomus jugulare. Okay, so just remember there can be jugular foramen syndrome. Then tinnitus, one of the cause of tinnitus is what? Glomus tumor. Okay, tumors of cerebellopontine angle, one of the tumors in cerebellopontine angle is what? Glomus tumor. Okay. Then that's all. Just remember some other terminology here, that FISCH was there, right? In treatment. This one, this word also you try to remember, okay? Infratemporal fossa approach of FISCH, large glomus jugulare. Okay. Just look at some MCQ points for glomus tumor. Okay, we'll just look at this MCQ points also. So, Brown sign. Where will you see Brown sign? In glomus tumor. Okay. Pulsatile tumor. Most pulsatile tumor found in external auditory meatus, which bleeds on touch, glomus tumor. Okay. Then, like we told you, it can spread to lymph node. Lymph node metastasis can be there. Okay. Then, in this you can see conductive type of hearing loss, fluctuating tinnitus, conductive type of hearing loss. Okay. Then, usual location of glomus jugular tumor is hypotympanon. Always remember guys, pulsatile tinnitus. Pulsatile tinnitus you have to write glomus tumor. Pulsatile tinnitus. Okay. According to the textbook guys, this glomus jugulare actually from the dome of jugular bulb, it invades the hypotympanon. Okay. Okay, that's all for now. Bye.